Welcome back on the AM show. Today we continue the conversation on government's intention to ban the imports of certain products. Call it a ban, call it a restriction. We'll be hearing today from the ranking member on Parliament's Trade Committee, Yusuf Sulemana. He's also a member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy. He joins the conversation. Mr. Sulemana, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for... I don't think we've had a conversation on this platform before, have we?
No, I think the last time I came here was in 2018 or so.
Okay.
So it's been a very long time that I've come here. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Bole Bamboy, it has a bit of a history,
Sure.
and your party's flag bearer
Sure.
also has his roots from there. How is your constituency? Let's start the conversation from there.
Yeah, so the constituency is doing well, but first of all, let me say good morning to our viewers and my constituents. Today we are talking about the Bole Bamboy constituency, and I'm saying that the constituency is doing very well. This is a constituency that produced one of the gentle presidents that we've ever had, who is coming back to seek the mandate of the people from 2025 onwards. We're hoping that Ghanaians will give him the second opportunity to continue to do what he had started. And so the constituency is in good hands. He handled it very, very well. And then later on, my uncle, the late Joseph Sakakati, took over from His Excellency, the former president. And after him, the good people of Bole Bamboy honored me and also asked me to represent them. And so I came to Parliament in 2017. So this is my second term. The good news is that they have also voted massively for me at the last primaries. What it means is that, God willing, in the 9th Parliament, I will be representing the people again. Yes.
All right. So let's get into some topical matters now that we've got your constituency out of the way. But maybe just to dwell a bit on your constituency. So in terms of education, for example, what is it like? I always do this with members of Parliament when they come here. Education, the economic life of your constituency, among other matters. What is the economy of your constituency? What do they do?
Yes, basically we are into farming.
Farming, right.
And also small-scale mining, whatever name you give to it.
Small-scale mining.
It's very prominent in the area, from Bamboy down to up to a place called the Krupe and all of that. You have gold deposits. And so there are some, if you like, community mining going on there. And we also have people who go into fishing. A few people who are also doing fishing, but predominantly farming is our business.
I see.
And so economically, that's what we do. In terms of education, we are not doing badly. The secondary school, for instance, last 2 years was one of the best secondary schools in terms of the senior high certificate examination results. And so in terms of education, I can say that we have our challenges, but we are doing well, except to say that, especially when it comes to basic education, you have infrastructural problems. You still have children lying on their bellies while studying. And again, teachers are lacking in some of the communities. These are some of the problems that we are facing. But it's not just Bole alone or Bole Bamboy alone. It also cuts across the whole country. Now, focus is on secondary education at the expense of basic education. And that is a problem that we
You think there's too much of a focus on secondary education or senior high?
Senior high, there's so much focus on that at the expense of primary education. And so this was one of the issues that we discussed in Parliament yesterday. There was a statement on that, and it generated a lot of debate. And so the Speaker even asked that the Minister of Education should come with a statement so that we can delve into it very well and see if we can make some recommendations to the executive.
Okay. So let's get into some other substantive matters. The LI to be laid before Parliament for debate on that matter. In fact, that debate has started on many fronts in respect of a ban on imports or a restriction on imports. KT Hammond has been pushing for that. I also note that your side in Parliament has said that you are against the imposition of such restrictions. I just want you to spell out, because I know there was a moment of truth held a few days ago. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? What is the official position of the NDC? Before I probe further, what is the official position?
So our official position is that we're not going to support the minister to lay the legislative instrument, and for that matter, to get it passed. Our stand is that we are against it in its current state. But let us also be clear that we are not saying that policies that will ensure that our balance of payment is improved, I wouldn't support it. We are not also saying that policies that will strengthen our city will not support it. But the LI in this state cannot solve the problems that the minister is seeking to solve. And that is why we're saying that we're not going to accept it in this form. So that should be made clear. It's not as if we are saying that policies that will help our balance of payment situation will not be supported. No, we're not also saying that we will not support any policy that will strengthen our currency. But this LI in its current state cannot, and we repeat, it cannot solve these issues that he seeks to resolve. So that's our official position.
All right, now let's break it down. You talk about the fact that this LI, this legislative instrument, will make KT Hammond too powerful. How so?
Yes, so for instance, if you look at the LI that he's bringing, but let me just give you a background to this. Now, the minister, by Act 503, has the right to enact or to come along with legislative instruments. And that is why he's hanging his strength on. So he's come to Parliament seeking to lay a legislative instrument to restrict the importation of what he calls strategic commodities.
Right.
And there are about 20, he started with about 22, now there are 24 products.
So he's added on. I mean, we can talk about some fruit juices, we can talk about rice, we can talk about poultry, sugar, and all of that.
And all of that. So he's taken off cement and brought in others. So he was 22, now he's 24. Now, under normal circumstances, before you come to lay a legislative instrument, you do what we call pre-laying. That's a convention. There's no law that says that you must do pre-laying, but there's a reason for that. The reason is that once you lay a legislative instrument, Parliament cannot do any significant changes to it.
Right.
So what you normally would do is to first bounce it with the mother committee. In this case, the Trade and Industry Committee. Unfortunately, Honorable KT Hammond decided not to involve the Trade Committee.
Why do you think he did that?
There's a reason that we cannot tell us we sit here. We are still wondering why he would decide not to involve us.
Do you think he realized that there was something off with the LI and so he was trying to evade?
That is our suspicion. We think that...
That's your suspicion?
Yes, we think that if he had brought it to us, I would have made significant changes to it. Perhaps that wouldn't have also inured to his benefit. As we speak, in that LI, okay, if you look at section 13 of it, he is the only person who has the right to give a permit, grant a permit, or to refuse a permit, even though he's going to set up an 11-member committee.
Right.
Now, that 11-member committee, he is the one to appoint all of them. And that 11-member committee, 4 of them form a quorum to be able to make to take decisions. Now, that committee is just an advisory committee. After they had gone through the applications and made their recommendations to him, the minister can decide to say, I won't take your recommendations. If you're saying I shouldn't give, I will give. If you're saying I should give for this particular person, I wouldn't give. Clearly, there's no need even setting up that committee. And so we're saying that it's going to give him so much powers. And once you have set powers, the next thing is corruption. Because you abuse the power, and then you begin to say that, oh, if you can give me this much, why not? I give it to you. But let's don't forget, when people are able to pay money to get the permit, they are going to add on whatever they would have paid to the minister or whosoever is taking the money to the price of the item. And so ultimately, it is the Ghanaian consumer who's going to suffer. And that's why we are saying that we represent the people, will not allow Ghanaians to suffer. Already, You all know the situation in which we have found ourselves. We cannot sit and allow them to add on this hardship. And so we're saying that there's going to be abuse of the system, given the kind of arrangement that he has.
But K.T. Hammond says he's a man of integrity. At least he has, suggested that. And you seem to be saying, without a shadow of a doubt, that corruption will happen. Is that what you're suggesting? Or are you hinging it on the aphorism that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts?
That's our point. Okay? And nobody's an angel. And I don't want to go into who K.T. Hammond is and who he's not.
But
okay?
I think we should. I think we should, because these are some of the things. If there's something character-wise that would not make this fit for purpose, it ought to be made known.
Clearly, he had held some public positions before, and we all know that at a point he had to be summoned before a court because certain things hadn't gone on well.
Like what?
For instance, the drillship project, where he was alleged that he has some corrupt acts, taking place within the transaction.
But that was an allegation.
It is.
Was it ever proven?
It was an allegation, and it is an allegation. But what we are saying is that in order not to create room for such allegations to come up again, why don't you do the right thing? And we're saying that giving him that power would definitely lead to corruption. And once there's corruption and monies are paid, ultimately it is the consumer who suffers. Again, this bill in its state, as I speak to you, is against one of the conditions of the IMF. We are going around saying that they should give us 600 billion dollars. We are going around asking that they should give it to us. One of the conditions, if you look at their staff report.
So you're talking of the 3 million and the tranches of 600 million.
If you look at their staff report, page 75, it says that there should not be any restrictions on such commodities. Why are we doing it? As I speak to you, the World Bank is speaking to them that they shouldn't do it, they shouldn't lay it. And they are telling the World Bank that they have not laid it. When, in fact, even yesterday, the minister was on the floor trying to lay this. Again, we are saying that we don't have the capacity to produce these commodities that he's talking about. For instance, take rice. Today, as we speak, our local production is about 4%. In 2016, there was a policy to support the rice industry. And I was working with Exim Bank. Okay, it was EDIF and now Exim Bank. Government had come out with a policy statement and a direction that we should support sugar. And so you realize that the Community Sugar Factory was set up, and Exim Bank had given out about $1.5 million to support it. Again, we were supposed to support what we call the broader revitalization program. And some huge sums of money was also disbursed to poultry farmers in this country, including Boris B., Akati Farms, and many other poultry farmers. At the end of the day, we were able to produce so much of poultry in this country. And so what we expect is that, let us know the data. What is the quantity of local rice that we are able to produce? What is the quantity, the tonnage of sugar that we are able to produce? And all of the products. Now, once we know that, we can now say that we are going to restrict based on our strength in terms of our local capacity in producing those commodities. All these information is not available. And the minister is just interested in pushing this down our throat. And we think that is problematic. Again, when you do this, you are going to also encourage smuggling. Now, if you say that huge importers of rice should not do it, and that you are restricting them, what they simply do is to bring it to, let's say, Cote d'Ivoire, and then smuggle it into this country.
Right.
When you do that, you are going to lose taxes. So these are some of the concerns, and we're saying that the man should hasten slowly. Even as we speak, stakeholders in the industry have not been consulted. 2 days ago, the Subsidiary Legislation Committee invited me because they were holding a stakeholder engagement with some people who had petitioned the speaker. It turned out that even the stakeholder report that K.T. Hammond tendered in to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee, one, there were no signatories to it. That's not the normal thing. And two, most of the people at the stakeholder engagement said they knew nothing about that report. So why is he in a rush?
All right. We also know that the bill must go through a 21-day process to ensure that it passes. And already looking at the time, I'll get into the nitty-gritty of some aspects of the bill that you've mentioned and also do some comparisons. I shared these last week Friday so that we can look at the real importation picture. Before that, I see a message coming through. Jomo Pokwasi firstly says, what sort of provisions have we made as a country before this proposed ban on importation of certain vital commodities? But looking at the 21-day window that we have to look at before Parliament, ups and rises. That's the word I was looking for. Is it possible to still do this even if you are sitting every day? Is it possible?
Yeah, so it is not possible. As we speak, like I said yesterday, the process is this. The law mandates him to come straight to Parliament and lay the legislative instrument. But I said here that once it is laid, the House cannot do any significant changes to it. So by practice and by convention, you always will go to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. They will do what we call winnowing. Take out what is not necessary, bring in what they think is necessary, judge with you, and then get to a point where they are okay with it. Then you now come and lay it. And then it's referred to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. Within a day or two, they're able to come out with a report. Now, once it is late, the very day that is late, we'll start counting. Right. 21 certain days it matures. Even if the committee failed to bring the report, once you have the 21 certain days, the bill becomes operational, it becomes a law, and then you can run with it. And so in this case, when he came to lay it, he didn't want to go to the subsidiary legislation. He was advised to go to them. He went to them. They made significant changes to the LI. And they asked him to go and incorporate that, bring it for them to see before he goes to lay it. He didn't go back to them. He came straight to the floor wanting to raise it. And that was when some of us came up strongly against it and appealed to the Speaker to allow us time to look at it very well. Thank God the Speaker listened to us. And so he was not able to lay it. And he was asked to go back to the committee. 2 days ago, the committee met with stakeholders. Honorable Minister will not wait. Yesterday, he was in Parliament again, struggling to lay it. Again, we said, no, you have the right to lay it, but don't lay it and come and take it back again, because it won't work. In any case, from now up to the time we rise, I don't think he's able to make the 21 sitting days. Right. Unless, of course, the Speaker decide that will sit on weekends, which will be difficult, because we're going to have our estimates from the budgets representing each of the ministries, and then finally we'll get the appropriation bill passed. As I speak to you, even the budget itself has not been approved. So we have not even started doing the appropriations. So the time is so tight, I don't think even if he lays it, he's going to get the 21 sitting days for it to mature. But if he lays it and he's not able to get the 21 working days, when we come back, you can still continue to count and then get the number of days for him to go ahead. Now, what we are doing is that we are telling Ghanaians that if this is passed, there will be monopoly. If this is passed, there will be smuggling of goods, of these commodities, and so government is going to lose tax. If this is passed, there's going to be unemployment. Why do I say so? There are a number of people who are involved in the value chain of car business, the garages, the spare part dealers, and I'm surprised that people like the Abosokan, the Swami, people who voted this party into government, they will tend to treat them this way. For instance, go and see the number of people at the Abosokan spare part dealers enclave. Now you're saying that you're going to restrict the importation of vehicles. Which vehicles, we don't know. There are so many garages everywhere in this country. Even Tamale and the north, there are garages, and these garages have employed so many people. Now you're saying that you're going to restrict the importation of these vehicles. What it means is that any rational businessman who want to lay off some of the workers, if they come to sit and they have nothing to do, are you asking them to go and chop grass? These are some of the things that we're talking about.
All right.
And as I speak to you, in 2016, unemployment rate was about 8.4. Today is hovering around 13.9%. As at September 2023.
So all those are valid points you're raising. I'll get into some some bits for us all to share. But a quick one. What numbers are needed in Parliament for this bill to pass? A simple majority?
Yeah, so if he's able to lay it, we'll need 2/3 of the House. And that's about 183 thereabouts.
Right.
I have spoken with the majority side, especially the trade committee members. They were not happy because we were not involved. And I've also spoken with other friends from that side. And if you ask them today, it's just that sometimes you cannot rely on them. They'll tell you that even if it comes to voting, we're going to get the 2/3. But you can't rely on them. We have seen instances where they themselves took decisions, very legitimate decisions that would have inured to the benefit of this country, but somewhere along the line, they had to drop them. For instance, when they had come out to say that the finance minister should be changed, it was a good policy, a decision. Okay, but somewhere along the line, they drop it. So we can't rely on them. And so for us, the 137, we are solidly against this restriction, and if he's able to push it through by laying it, we just wait. When the time comes, we'll demonstrate to Ghanaians that we are against it. And there are so many ways of doing this. We can insist that we vote, and if we are 137, Ghanaians would have known that we have gone against it. Or decide to walk out and leave them to do whatever they want to do. There are so many ways, and when we get there, leadership will give us the guidance.
Right, so 183 is what KT Hammond will need.
Sure.
That's what he will require.
Sure.
Which is about how many more? If you do the deduction from the...
That's about 30.
137. Because it actually is 183.3, but you don't have 0.3 of a person. So if you do the deduction, they would need about 46 point something.
Exactly.
Either 46 or 47.
Let's say 47.
More people. So if all MPP members voted for it, they would need 47 members from the NDC for this to pass. That's what you're saying.
No, so you see, when you there's a motion and you say that you are against it, for instance, he's coming to lay this bill, and then when...
Or is it your side that will require that?
Yes, who will require that?
2/3.
Who will require, yes, 2/3 to torpedo it.
So in this instance, you rather would be looking for 47 people
of them.
on the majority side.
Exactly.
To back you up.
And I'm saying that you can't rely on them.
Right. That's quite a number that you would have to
That's
deal
a problem. And that is why we are calling on civil society organizations, the clergy, and all those who matter. Ben, let me just tell you something. 3 days ago, I got a call from a very, senior person from our party who suggested to me that, why are you, Paul, pushing that he shouldn't lay this thing? Already Ghanaians are suffering. So let him lay it. By next year, the first to second quarter of next year, the hardship will be unbearable. And that will make our work easy. Ghanaians will vote for us. So that's the way I think we should go. Now, having consulted a lot of our leadership and even, those who matter in this party, the position is that we are not just interested in winning power. We are representing the good people of this country. Why should we sit down and allow them to be punished? Why should we sit down and allow them to go into hardship just because we want to win power? So our motivation is not because we want to win power. Our motivation is that we shouldn't sit down and allow this hardship to continue.
Okay, worst case scenario from your end, worst case scenario, the bill passes. What then happens? Let's assume your side comes to power. Let's assume that happens. You also have the opportunity of, changing this.
Sure, that's a possibility. And so we are consistent. If he lays it and we are not able to stop it using our numbers because we don't have the numbers, it will go through. But I can assure you that when we come, and we are coming in 2025, we will take this obnoxious policy off.
All right. So let's take a look, good people of Ghana, let's take a look at what exactly this means. Last week, Friday, I shared some slides. I'm going to share some of them with you to paint a picture, starting with what this means. That if you look at it, what Mr. Sulemana has been speaking of. So per the LI, the requirements for import. A person shall not import or cause to be imported into the country a selected strategic product without an import permit issued by the minister on the written recommendation of the Import Permit Committee. Then 2, a person shall not facilitate the importation of a selected strategic product or B, shipment of a selected strategic product into the country without an import permit issued by the minister on the written recommendation of the Import Permit Committee. That's what is being said will make the minister too powerful, and he likely will abuse those powers. Then you look at the list of items in there, and there's been an add-on, there have been additions, but you're seeing rice. You're seeing guts, bladders, and stomachs of animals, yemwadi as we call them. You're seeing poultry. You're seeing animal and vegetable oil, margarine, fruit juices, soft drink, mineral water, corrugated paper and paper boards, mosquito coil and insecticides, soaps and detergents, motor cars, iron and steel, diapers, polymers, plastics and plastic products, fish, biscuits, canned tomatoes, ceramic tiles, clothing and apparel, noodles and pasta, sugar. All of these and more are going to be affected. And these are staples. These are things that we use practically every day. Now let's go and look at the metrics in terms of the statistics for some of the products and what our production levels are and what we're looking at. Now, if you look at Ghana's imports versus exports, you would realize the yellow line reflects imports, the black line reflects exports. You would realize that in 2012, there was some parity. It was pretty close, imports versus exports. Then you'd realize that moving on to 2013, that's where there was some disparity. 2014, the gap had widened a bit. Imports were actually higher than exports, but it wasn't too bad. It was about $1.7 billion. Then we go to 2015, you would see the disparity becoming about $3.5 billion. And in 2016, it closed up again, the import-export value. So you would have imports of 15.8 billion and exports of 16.2 billion. But then since that time, you look at 2017, the widening started again, just like in 2014, of about $2.6 billion. And then it's continued. The trend continued in 2018, 2019, with a wider gap. Then you look at 2020. That is where, right before 2020, there was some reduction in the exports, and then imports took over. Since that time, 2020 to be specific, there's been a gap of about $3.1 billion. That was in 2020. And since that time, it's been widening. As we speak now, in the latest data we have, our exports, though this year may not have been factored in, our exports have declined far below our imports. So you look at an export value of 14.10 billion, an import value of 20.20 billion. That's a gap of about $6.10 billion. Now, if we go to the next slide, you would also see Ghana's rice production. Just a quick one. In 2017, we're producing 500,000 metric tons. Okay, so 450,000 metric tons. That was the figure there. That's total demand versus local production. So if you look at local production, we had 450,000 metric tons. The local production at the time was 1 million metric tons. That left a gap of about 550,000 metric tons. You go to 2018, there was an increment because while we had moved to 510,000 metric tons in production, the consumption had moved to the total demand, 1.12 million. And look at the trend. It's been increasing. While at some point, for example, in 2019, our local production fell, you would realize that the total demand kept moving up. In fact, it kept moving up. Our production levels have not gone beyond 600,000 in a while, which was attained in 2021. It is in 2023 that we are looking at about 800,000 metric tons. But note, the consumption has shot up to 1.5 million metric tons. It means we are still producing just about half or less than half of our total consumption. Now, if you go to the next slide, I would explain something further. If you look at poultry, for example, which is also one of those on the list, you would realize that the tale is even more scary. In 2020, and by the way, the black bar chart represents total demand, the yellow one represents imports, the green one represents local production. If you look at these, you would see that total demand 2020 for poultry, 356,000 metric tons. In 2021, 400,000 metric tons. In 2022, 460,000 metric tons. We've been adding on anything between 40 and 60,000, an average of about 50,000 every year. But then look at local production. In 2020, 58,000 metric tons. In 2021, 50,000 metric tons. In 2022, 60,000 metric tons. We are adding on in local production by a few thousands. Then you look at the gap. How do we fill the gap? With imports. And that's where in 2020 you would see. Look at the total demand, 356,000. Out of that, what we imported was 295,000 metric tons, almost 300,000. You look at 2021, what we imported, 350,000 metric tons, and the total demand was 400,000. We only produced 50K. You look at 2022, same picture. In fact, then we had to import 400,000 metric tons. And what I'll wrap with, the example of even Nigeria, which in rice, they put up their rice pyramids and all of that. But even look at their story and how it has taken them, how long it has taken them to get some balance. You look at 2010, Nigeria's rice production stood at 2.8 million metric tons, okay? Now let's fast forward. They've gone to 2.9, 3.42, 3.08, 3.78. Then you go all the way to 2022. It is only in 2022 that they've been able to come anywhere close to doubling their production. It's taken them 12 years to get to 5.35 million. In fact, if you look at twice the value of 2.8 million, you will get 5.6 million metric tons. They are even still not there yet. They are still not there yet. They need about another 0.65 or 650,000 metric tons before they can reach twice as much as they were producing in 2010. So the picture is not as simple as it's being painted. This thing must be gradual. And like I said, Nigeria is trying to do it, and even they are struggling. It's not easy. So I just had to establish those facts as well. But having got here, okay, what next? Because you've had your moment of truth, you've spoken extensively about this, but like has often been said in Parliament, the minority will have their say, the majority will have their way. If that happens, if you don't get the 2/3 of Parliament to back you up, what then do you do?
Yeah, so like we all just discussed here, we have our limitations. If at the end of the day, the minister insists to lay it and is late, and he's able to get the required number of sittings, and it becomes a law, we're saying that when we come, and inshallah we are coming, it's something that we're going to abolish. Now, we are also doing what we're doing, speaking to the public and calling on well-meaning Ghanaians to speak to the president and his vice president. This policy is not just emanating from K.T. Hammond. Normally, you have to take such policies to cabinet meetings. So it is at cabinet meetings that you are giving the go-ahead. And so whatever he's doing, he has the backing of the president and his vice president. They claim they are a listening government. If they are a listening government, we, the minority, and many, many Ghanaians, including World Bank and IMF, are all saying that this is not a time to impose restriction on these commodities. And so we think that we still have some window for civil society organizations, the media, and all of us to call on government, and for that matter, the president and the vice president, to ask the Minister of Trade to, as it were, stop pushing for the laying of the legislative instrument. Clearly, we have all seen that we are not there yet. And the question to ask is, what have you done to support local industries? Let's take rice. Let the Ministry of Agric, and for that matter, the government, tell us what they have done to support rice farmers. And I'm saying that under John Dramani Mohammed's administration, we supported rice by importing, helping farmers to import combined harvesters. I was deeply involved because I was at Exim Bank, and we gave money to rice farmers, even small-scale rice farmers in the north and other places. I remember it was Dr. Yakubu Al-Hassan, the former deputy minister, who was handling this. Then there was also the poultry revitalization program, which was also handled by the Honorable Deputy Minister then, Hannah Bisiu, where we also gave some interest-free loans to the poultry sector, where some people were giving money and some people were giving all sorts of support so that they are able to increase their local production. When you came, you stopped it. Again, the government had decided to help establish Commended Sugar Factory so that we are able to produce sugar locally. Then, gradually, we are able to reduce the importation as we increase local production.
And I was about to get to the Commenda issue, because whenever I have members of the NDC come here, I don't let you get away with Commenda. You did not produce any sugar. It's still not producing any sugar. Whether the right mechanisms were in place. Before Alan Trematin, the former trade minister, left, he had made some promises which never materialized. But I keep saying that while we may lay blame at the doorstep of X or Y person, your party also didn't do us justice with Commenda.
So what were we expected to do? Then the problem is this. We came and took a decision that we're going to invest in the production of sugar. That is a major policy decision, okay? And we expect that any other government that will come on board will continue with it. So as a result of that,
they said the deal was fraught with shadiness.
So what prevented them from investigating it and ensuring that the right thing was done? The policy itself shouldn't suffer, okay? The policy itself shouldn't suffer. The project shouldn't suffer. If there were some kind of mismanagement or alleged corruption, deal with that. You don't say because of that, you throw the whole project away. That is why we are here. Are we saying that there's no need to produce sugar in this country? Definitely, the answer is there's a need for us to produce sugar. And so if the government had taken up that decision to invest in the production of sugar, and we had gone in for a loan. Yesterday, the minister was in Parliament, and to compare the cost of the same equipment, okay, that he had asked from India, the price of it, and the price at which the NDC bought it, and thought that there was some wrongdoing. And I just, couldn't hold it. You see, the project was what we call a turnkey project. Turnkey project in this case will mean that the cost of equipment, cost of shipping the equipment, consultancy, training, and constructing the whole structure. And so if we had invested $35 million into it, you can't compare that to just the cost of the equipment alone, and you want to make a noise about it. For me, I thought that he was not well informed. Somebody somewhere is misleading him. What we are saying is that nobody can say that that policy is not a good policy. And so if you had started it, and there were problems with it, you deal with the problems. There was a Pricewaterhouse audit report, technical audit report, and they didn't say that stop the project. They had made recommendations as to how to go about it. Why did they sell the report? And allow the project to deteriorate, allow the factory to deteriorate to a point that even it became unattractive for people to want to invest in it. Why did they do that?
So you're suggesting some diabolism?
That's my point. To the extent that we were all in this country when Alan Trematin took courage and invested there and introduced the investor to the people of Commenda, and that he was coming to take off. I followed up with so many questions. He used COVID as an excuse, and later on he said that the project was not worth it. And so it's an albatross. And that's the words of Katie Hammond. It's an albatross, but you are still investing in it. So if it's an albatross, what's the alternative?
Oh, interesting dynamics in there. Let's take a little leap from there and settle on Parliament's leadership as far as the committees are concerned. You've had some sort of reshuffle, and rightly so, but explain to us what happens. How does this happen? What is the trigger, and what are the major shifts that we've seen in Parliament in this respect?
Yeah, Parliament operates on committees. We have two major committees. We have the select committees, and then we have the standing committees. And by our standing orders, each member of Parliament is supposed to serve on at least two committees. So, for instance, one from the select committee, and then another from the standing committee. Sometimes you have people serving on 2 or 3, but it shouldn't be one. Now, in the case of, what happened just recently is because you remember in January 20 this year, somewhere 25 4th January, there was a shake-up in the minority side where we had changed our leadership. Now, Honorable Atufosun was the ranking for finance. Honorable Amakofibua was the ranking for trade. Honorable Abuja was the ranking for rules. Now, if they have been moved to leadership positions, those leadership positions at the committee level became vacant. There's nothing like acting in our standing orders where one will say that, okay, then the deputy rankings automatically will act. There's nothing like that. And so it was just hanging. We didn't know who exactly was in charge. They were so busy doing their leadership business, and so the committees, if you like, were suffering in one way or the other. Then again, you also realize that we have some by-elections. When Honorable Basua passed on, there was a by-election at Kumawu, and so a new member of parliament was sworn in. He was not assigned any committee, and so clearly he was also just hanging around. And so effectively, we were not able to do our work as a parliament, whether from the minority side or the majority side. And so leadership thought that there was a need for us to resolve it, especially so we are just about to take our estimates. And when you go for estimates, it is the two leaders, the ranking and the deputy ranking, who will have to, the ranking and the chairman, who will have to handle the estimates and then come to report to the preliminary. And so if you don't have them, it becomes difficult for you to even report to preliminary and report appropriately. And so leadership thought that we should do the necessary changes. And that is why you've seen that there's some changes in both the minority side and the majority side. For instance, we now have Patrick, who's become a chairman for the subsidiary, and then there's Nelson who's supporting him, and then you have on our side, by the grace of God, I've now been elevated to rank for trade, industry and tourism.
You're now the ranking member.
Yes, and then my colleague Alhaji Isifu Baba from Nalerugu Gambaga, who's supposed to be the deputy ranking on our side. When it comes to trade, Honorable Ajay Mensah is now made, when it comes to road, is now made the ranking member, and then Honorable Aboji is now the deputy ranking member. Finance, my good brother and friend Adongo is now in charge, and Honorable Richard Achampong is the deputy ranking. And so some positions have been moved strategically to ensure that we prepare ourselves very well. Clearly, when it comes to debate and when it comes to the work on the floor of Parliament, the minority has proven to the majority that we have the men and we are ready to take over come 2025.
Well, let me take a bit of a pause now and bring in Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, for his take on these matters. Dr. Rahman, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
It's good to have you. My apologies for keeping you waiting briefly. I hope you've kept well.
Yes, I'm well. Thank you very much.
Right. I'd just like to find out from you, even before we get into the change in leadership or the change in watch in Parliament, do you have any take on the latest LI, the wrangling from both sides, and some of what we've discussed here this morning, the real implications of this LI if it passes? What's your take?
No, I don't have any take on that. I didn't follow that discussion, so sorry.
All right, Dr. Rahman, I see you don't want to go there at all. Let's talk about the shake-up in Parliament in terms of the committees and their different leadership. This, I don't know whether you would call it standard practice at this time, but what's your assessment of it?
I have three questions or three problems with what's happening right now in Parliament.
Okay.
In terms of the shake-up that, you call it. I think number one is the timing.
Timing, right.
Yes. Number one is the timing. Globally, I think the good practice is once members of parliament are appointed to a committee, the suggestion has always been that you leave them in that committee throughout the mandate of the legislature so that they can hone their skills and so on in that particular field. Over the years, our parliament, by and large, we've seen some level of stability of committees, committee membership, as compared to, for instance, other countries in the region, the Francophone countries, where we've done some work. And in those countries, every year, there's a change in leadership and even, extending to the membership of the committees. And we've always touted our practice, to be one that was heading towards, that stability. And now we are seeing this. If we leave even the issue of the stability aside, looking at the time when, they have to go and consider these estimates and so on, as the honorable member that you were speaking to earlier had indicated. I don't think you change the leadership of a committee at this point. So that is my first issue with this change. On the minority side, I hear clearly. Maybe the leader was, all the other people behind him were occupying some of these important positions, and so they have to be replaced and so on. But the timing, for me, is the number one problem. Number two is that, so where is the standing orders? I don't know whether you have asked all the members that you've spoken to. I think we've talked about these new standing orders. All of us were very excited a few months ago and so on. I was hoping that by now, if there's anything going on in Parliament in terms of hierarchy, in terms of structure and so on, would have been, working on the basis of the new standing orders. So maybe you might want to ask the honorable member and whoever you speak to from inside Parliament, where are we with that? Is it stalled? Are we going to get the new standing orders, or this was just some excitement that we all had that has faded away and so on and so forth? And the third issue, and I don't want to go into whether somebody qualifies or somebody doesn't qualify and so on. But over the years, I think what we've been saying, and it's based on maybe practices from other parliaments that we copy from or we try to learn from. We have to make sure that people are put in the committees where they can be relevant, where they have expertise to contribute to the growth and the work of that committee. If you do a very careful analysis, in some instances, yes, people are put there because of their expertise, but in other instances, you just see it's just a question of either trying to, create some balance or trying to make some people happy and so on. And that is not going to help us to advance, particularly the cause of oversight and accountability in our country. So these are just the general comments that I have about the current changes that are going on.
All right. So you talk about, of course, those who must be placed in certain committees. I believe the standard practice is that they look at the areas of expertise or experience of the person before they put them on some of these committees and more. But if you look at, you've spoken about the timing, and that was the first thing that hit me, that, okay, at this point in time, is it the best thing, especially as we're entering the final year of this 8th Parliament? Apart from these three, beyond these 3 points that you have raised, when you look at the shuffling and the people going to head these committees, what do you make of them? Anything that excites you, or are there instances where you feel we could have done better?
Well, I think on the maybe let me just talk about one of the most important, which is the challenge that I mean, we are all facing, I mean, wherever you belong in the political divide, I mean, the economy is hitting all of us right now. You know, Honorable Isaac Adongo, of course, I think if there's anybody who speaks on these matters and tries to hold the government to account, I mean, I think on the minority bench, I think we can't call anybody's name before his name. So I think for me, that is really kind of a strategic move. I think we need people like him, particularly at this point in our history. And as you would realize, and I believe everybody would agree, I mean, he has been on these financial issues over and over and over. So that's what I was talking about in terms of the kind of skills to putting people at the places where, I mean, they can really make a significant contribution. So if there's anyone that stands out for me, I think that's that one. I don't want to go into the others because otherwise it brings you into a collision course with individual MPs. But I mean, that's not necessary at this point.
Then another issue that recently came to the fore, I'll just run it by you. If you want to comment on it, fine. The whole bit about approving the budget and everything that happened. I'm not concerned with the result because the Parliamentary Service has already confirmed to us that the budget for 2024 has not received approval. But the process of it, what happened with the Speaker calling for a voice vote, and then the acceptance at a point, then the questioning from the minority side, the request for a head count, which led to the majority's walkout. I just want to know, do you feel any infractions took place? Do you feel the right things were done? And now that the Parliamentary Service says there's no approval of the budget, what do you make of it? I just want to do on the process.
I don't think that anything wrong was done because we've seen instances where in this Parliament, I mean, people have challenged voice vote. You know, especially if you look, I mean, I don't think that, this is any rocket science. I mean, you hear the voices, I mean, you look, especially, I mean, during this budget process, there's been a significant disappointment, I mean, by members of Parliament because most of the time the House was empty. They were running away from one of the most sacred jobs that they have to perform.
One of their core, topmost functions.
And indeed. Because if there's any kind of important function for any member of Parliament, I think it is this one. And at this point in time, when we expect them to go in there, particularly given where our country is, we are not in a good place. So everybody was expecting that we will see the House full to the brim every single day during this process, so that they get answers for the citizens that they represent. On the contrary, they were running away from their jobs. You know, the House was mostly empty. I mean, I'm not saying it. You took the cameras in there and we saw what was happening. And those were the things that led to this challenge. Otherwise, if everybody had shown up, everybody was in the House, we wouldn't get to this point where, I mean, at one point we say the budget was approved, another point it's not approved, and so on. But I think in terms of the processes and procedures, I mean, if any member, I mean, stands on, a standing order and say, look, I mean, I don't think that the ayes have it. Well, if indeed whichever side thought that they had won, if they had the numbers, they should sit there and let the counting begin. It's as simple as that. I mean, so really, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's all about the two sides ensuring that during these critical moments, I mean, we don't subject our country and we don't subject the institution to this kind of embarrassment by, demonstrating that we don't take this process as serious as it ought to be taken.
Dr. Draman, you've added a wealth of your experience and insight to our conversation, and we're grateful for your time. Unless you have any final words, we'll sew it up here with you, sir.
I think I don't have anything to add.
All right. Thank you so much. That is Dr. Rashid Draman. He just joined the conversation. He is Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Let me come back into the studio. Yusuf Sulemana, who is now ranking member on the Trade Committee and also Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy, is still in the studio here with me. You heard Dr. Draman's question about the standing orders. Where are we with that?
So let me tie the timing to the standing orders. I do agree with him when he said that he has a problem with the timing. Of course, one of the reasons why I said there was a need for reshuffle was because there was this change in leadership, especially from the minority side. And this happened in January. So we could have effected the changes earlier than we're doing now. But because we were working on the new standing order, the information that we were told, that we were given was that instead of making those changes, we should rather wait, finalize the new standing order, and that would have taken care of
some of these.
The occurrence of the changes, okay? And so we delayed somewhere, I think last 2 weeks, it was presented to us on the floor of Parliament. The new standing order was presented to us in the form of a paper. And normally when it is presented to you as in the form of a paper, the second leg is for you to move it as a motion. It will be debated and then adopted. And so as I speak to you, in terms of where we are, the standing orders have now been presented to preliminary, and we are waiting for a motion to be moved for it to be adopted. Now, Doctor also spoke about relevance.
Right.
When some of us joined Parliament in 2017, you were always given a form to fill and choose which committee you want to belong to. But there was also a committee that will ask that you bring your
credentials, right?
Your CV.
Right.
So they look at your background and see where they could place you. And so when I went, my intention was to go to the Finance Committee. And so I wanted Finance Committee, I wanted Public Accounts Committee and all of that. At the end of the day, I was called and told that, look, the Finance Committee, we think that you are qualified to go there, but we have a lot of people who were on that committee even before you came. Right. In the SIF Parliament, they were there and we couldn't change them. So we think that we want to push you to Trade Committee. Again, they also said that we needed to do some regional balance. And you see, you are doing politics. Much as we agreed that we have to do parliamentary business, there's also the need for some space to be created for others to also learn. And so sometimes you cannot have all the committees having only people who are
you would call them some sort of experts. You must have some.
You must have some who want to also learn.
Right.
Because, for instance, in some cases you have, let's say, 6-7% of, let's even say 70% of the people wanting to go to one particular committee, and they are all qualified. What do you do?
Right.
You cannot take all of them there. What you do is to select some to that committee and take some to different committees, hoping that they will learn and learn very, very fast.
Okay.
And the issue of what is it called? The timing also comes in because some ministers were appointed somewhere along the line. And so if you appoint a minister, because of the kind of system we run, they don't have enough time to sit in Parliament. We know that. And so you want people who have much time to be able to handle some of the issues that the committees handle. And so that is one of the reasons why the reshuffle was also necessary. But I do agree with him when he talks about the timing. We could have done this earlier, but again, it's as and when the reshuffle, the changes will be effected. If, for instance, somebody is appointed a minister, you don't wait and say that because it's closer to budget or it's closer to elections, you wouldn't do the necessary things to make sure that the committees are effective.
Okay, so important points you've made. Let's move the conversation forward. I also want us to look at the running mate saga in the NPP. And Dr. Baumia has become the flag bearer of the party.
Okay.
But who runs with him? I've heard, I think, the women's organizer, Kate Jemfua, make mention of the fact that the person would be from the Ashanti region, would be a member of parliament and all of that. But it appears the Vice President needs more reflection on the matter. So he's petitioned the National Council in breach, if you like, of the Constitution. So they then, because of the petition, they've granted him more time. Ordinarily, the Constitution would say that within a 1-year period, which would have been maybe the 7th of December or something earlier, to the 7th of December 2024, when elections will be held. That has been granted him. Your party doesn't even have a running mate yet, and you appear not to be in haste to choose that. While in the MPP, we've seen so many names bandied about: the Education Minister, Dr. Yahweh Duchum, the Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, the Majority Leader, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu, all of these names. What is your reading of the situation and the lack of a choice as of now of a running mate? Because you guys are even far behind.
When you say we are far behind, I don't get it. We have not breached...
At least in terms of...
We have not breached any provisions of our Constitution.
Far behind in the sense that your flag bearer was selected long before this one. But it's constitutionally,
nothing prevents him from choosing the running mate as and when he thinks it's necessary. But in this case, there's a breach of their Constitution. Yes, they've given him the waiver and they've asked him to take his time and get them a credible running mate. But Ben, the problem is that the value will be the same. I don't think that any running mates, whether from a Asante region, whether a woman or whatever, will bring any change to the economic situation in which we find ourselves. And
but so, it's not only based on the economy that people are going to vote.
Yes.
People are going to vote on myriad issues, including education. And the MPP has touted free SHS.
I'm coming to that. The free HSS will not be something to bang on in these coming elections. But we are told that the NPP have decided to take their running mate from the Asante region. For some good reason. They want an Akan, northern combination and all of that. But I think that Ghanaians will want to look at the performance of the two political parties and not just the individuals. Yes, the individuals who have some impact, but Ghanaians will be looking at really who has been able to impact on their lives positively. And so if they are thinking of bringing somebody from Asante region, the question to ask is, the MPP has been in government all this while. What has been their contribution in Asante region? Recently, we were all shocked when we heard that the Asante Hini was going around looking for money to go and renovate the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital. Right. When we know that huge sums of money has been sunk into a cathedral, when hospitals are dilapidated and people are dying, you think the people of Asante region are not reasonable? So they are going to vote not on the basis of who becomes a running mate, but on the basis of what impact on their lives. And so if you have a government that has been able to ensure that the economic activities of the Asante region is enhanced by building a modern market, which today has employed so many people, you think they are stupid not to reflect on that? You have a government that has built so many hospitals around the Asante region. There are so many of them. You have a government that has provided water for so many districts in the Asante region. You have a government that has provided road network within the Asante region, even though this region is not their stronghold. But the NDC government has done this to them. Recently, we heard the minister of the Asante Regional Minister lamenting that most of the contractors are abandoning their projects because they were not paid. And this is a region that is called the stronghold of the MPP. So going to pick a candidate from that region, if you ask me, is not going to make any difference. And that's why I'm saying that...
But it's politically correct, isn't it?
It may be politically correct.
I mean, for the first time, they have a flag bearer of northern extraction. It only makes sense for them to,
to
focus on their stronghold and get a running mate from there.
What is political correct? What is political correct, in my view, is your ability to impact on the lives of the people who have respected you and voted for you. That is what I would call politically correct, not just individuals. You go and pick somebody there who cannot impact on the lives of the people. If you ask me, it's not politically correct. And I'm saying that you have very prominent people from Asante region, and those names that you have mentioned, Chairman Sabosu, Honorable Educhum, Honorable
Matthew Opoku Prempeh, among others.
Among others. Very good people, very intelligent people, but that's not what we're looking out for. We are looking out for a government with policies and programs that will impact on the lives of the people. And so whosoever my good brother Baumia will choose, if he asks me, is not going to make any impact because their policies have not inured to the benefit of the people. And that is what is going to judge their decision as to who party to vote for. For instance, you see, we have a leader, a vice president, who, when he says that I'll do this, you will have to think twice. There are so many instances where my brother's words haven't come to pass. And so whosoever he goes to bring to add him to himself will not bring any change. We're told that every community, every village in Ghana will be given water, potable water, and toilets. Where are we today? We're told that every constituency will be given $1 million annually. Starting from 2017 to date, where are we today? He was the one who shepherded who is the one who is managing the economy of this country as we speak. And at a point, he was so bold and proud to say that he had arrested the city and given the key to the IGP. Today, where are we? This is a man who we all touted to be one of the most experienced and intelligent economists. Today, he's not talking about economics. His interest is in digitalization. This is a man who made so many promises that we cannot even count and failed to deliver. So whether he brings an angel as his running mate or whatever, I'm saying that there wouldn't be any difference.
Well, it paints an interesting picture. Recently, I saw some fact check of whether the vice president had actually added votes to the MPP from the northern region. It makes for interesting reading because if you look at it, the tail of the tape from 1992, it's actually been reducing. So what will happen in the northern belt of the country versus the southern belt of the country, only God knows. We'll leave that to voters, as Sir John famously said, fear delegates, and we might extend it, fear voters. But just a quick one. How about the NDC? You don't have a running mate yet. From the rhetoric that we've heard from the former president, John Mahama, it would appear that he's not going to go with Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. There has been talk about the fact that it's going to be a man and all of that. The former president's own,
you heard this from him?
Well,
can you play it?
It's been made mention of.
No, if you have
time
evidence that is what he said.
It's been alluded to him.
So
okay?
for me, it's not something to.
But I just want to find out. When are you coming out with your running mate? Is it going to be Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman or is it going to be someone else?
When are we coming out with our running mate? This is a decision that is made at a certain level of our party. And so I cannot sit here and
You're part of the higher echelons of
No, I am not. I mean, we have leadership structure, the Council of Elders, the Functional Executive, and all of that. So the decision makers, with respect to who becomes our running mate, I'm not part of it, and I will not sit here and pretend as if I know anything about it. We'll leave it in the hands of those who matter, and I can assure you that at the appropriate time, they'll get us a running mate that will support His Excellency, the former president and the incoming president, John Dramani Mahama, to win the 2024 election, and then he will continue with his good things that he had started when he was the president.
Do we have an idea when? I mean, we're in the last month of the year. 2024 is just around the corner. When are you waiting for? Or do you want to see the candidate of the MPP before you come through with your candidate?
I do not think that it's a difficult decision for His Excellency, the former president, and those who are supposed to make this decision. It's not a difficult decision at all. And so for us, we are focused on our policies. 24-hour economy, what is it about? We should be able to tell Ghanaians, okay, what do we intend to do when it comes to education? We're saying that the free senior high school policy, we need to review it. What do we intend to do when it comes to health? Those are the things that Ghanaians want to hear, not necessarily a running mate. A running mate will not put food on our tables. We are in a situation today that you and I know that when you take your salary today, it won't get to the house. Everything will finish. That should concern an alternative government like that of the NDC. And so what we are focusing on is, let's put our house together. Let's be an alternative government by giving Ghanaians the hope and giving Ghanaians the necessary policies that when we come back to power, we're not going to behave like what we're seeing today. Today, look at where inflation is. What are we doing to bring it down? Today, look at where unemployment is. What policies are we thinking through so that when we put before Ghanaians, there will be some hope? I have always said that in life, anytime you don't have hope, then you are dead, you are gone. Anybody who hangs himself, God forbid, is because the person has lost hope and thinks that there's nothing again to hang on. And so we don't want Ghanaians to get that point. We want to provide hope, and that is why we are spending our time to come out with policies that we would have thought through very well, policies that will solve our problems.
Right.
That should engage us. And that's what the NDC flag bearer and the leadership of the NDC are doing. And I can assure you that we are almost done with our manifesto. And I can tell you, you listen to the manifesto, you look at the manifesto's content, and a thumb will be raised for us. And I can assure you that Ghanaians are going to vote massively for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, because we all know where we are and we don't think that we want to be in this situation.
All right. I'm very grateful that you've taken the time to join this conversation. Our time is up, and we've looked at the pertinent issues. And as you go back, well, we hope that this LI, whatever work may be done, that both sides of Parliament, you work in the interest of the country, and that moving forward, sometimes when I have the parliamentarians here, I want to say that sometimes the rancor also becomes a bit too much, but sometimes the passiveness about, oh, it's from this side, so it must be this, or it's from that side, so it must be that. All of that must be taken in consideration of the national perspective. You represent your constituents. So speaking for the people of Ghana, I'm channeling it to you. Always do what is in the interest of the people. I'm not suggesting anything. No, I'm just saying that sometimes
I agree with you, but
with the walkouts, like we've seen recently and in the past, let's do what is...
That there are many calls on us to allow the LI to go, because many believe that will inure to our political benefit. But we're saying no, Ghana first. We're saying no. Let's ensure that our people don't continue to suffer by our policies.
Right.
And so it's not about Party A or Party B, but it's about Ghanaians. So Ben, thank you so much for giving me this audience. I think this is the first time I've come here, and let me use this opportunity to thank His Excellency the former president, and to say good morning, bro. And also one of my good friends who is in Obuasi, Alhaji Bawa Rashid. I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi to you. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Sulemana. Yusuf Sulemana is Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboy. He also is now ranking member on the Trade Committee of Parliament. Well, stay with us, because coming up shortly, we'll still be talking about other pertinent issues. One of them being the placement system into our senior high schools. There still are many, a chunk of our junior brothers and sisters who have not got placed. What is the situation? What can we expect? All of those conversations after the show, after the break. We'll be right back.